It's finally that time of the year again. It's nice and chilly, probably snowing depending on where you are, and last but not least, we're all getting ready for the year to wrap up and to go balls to the wall into 2026. I thought it would be cool for me to do a sort of recap style video of the games I experienced this year. Some of them I've covered more in depth on the channel, but you'll see as the video goes. I'd also like to say that these games are ranked from the least impactful to the most impactful. I understand it's a bit unfair to rank these games, which have varying budgets, developers, etc., but don't take this ranking too seriously. And unless specifically stated, the goal is always to get you to check out one of these games. So this will indeed be a spoiler-free video for all games included. I'm Elias, and welcome back to Elias Speaks. Alright, starting off strong at number 10, we have a small indie title named Perfect Vermin. Perfect Vermin is a very short, incredibly short game. So short that I'll keep it to a very minimum. It's free on Steam, and the game is about 20 minutes give or take. There's a big twist in the end, and it's all very symbolic and deep. Of course, it'll hit you on varying levels depending on how close you are to the topic, but yeah, it's a cool little thing. Go play it. Alright, at number 9 we have That Which Gave Chase. That Which Gave Chase is a small indie title set in the Arctic wilderness. God man, I wish more games, especially horror games, would use colder settings. It always gives me a Silent Hill vibe when a horror game utilizes snow or fog, or that general fall/winter atmosphere. We play the game through the perspective of a dog musher, who's been hired by a scientist as his personal driver of sorts, to take him through the snowy, cold, eerie place. You know little to nothing about the scientist, his mission, except the fact that he has hired you for the job, and you will try your best to complete it. However, things take a very dark turn as the game goes on, and the lore reveals a lot when you study it. At number 8 we have The Silent Age. The Silent Age is a game about a janitor in the 70s who works for a big-time corporation. Everything is swell until one day in the basement our main character Joe, the janitor, stumbles upon an old dying man, bloodied with what seems like bullet wounds. This is super left field to say the least. The old man reveals to us that he's a time traveler for a lack of better words, and he's come back to stop the destruction of the world as we know it, set to take place in 40 years. The man gives us his time-traveling device shortly before passing away. The rest of the game has us traveling back and forth from the 70s to the distant, eerie, desolate future. It's a cool sci-fi time-traveling joint that's great if you have a few hours to kill, and if you don't mind playing anything too demanding, seeing as the game is a point-and-click puzzle solver. At number 7 we have Good Old Techno Banter. Good old Techno Banter. Techno Banter, in the simplest way I could describe it, is like Papers, Please meets Hotline Miami with hints of Party Hard. The game is about Nil, a security guard that's forced to take on his former bouncing gig at the Green Door Club, a club that he previously worked at one point in time. The game is super ambitious and I love that about it. The usual gameplay loop has you showing up to the club and vetting each potential guest to see if there'll be a good culture fit behind the green door. However, that's not all that the game has to offer, despite being a large part of the game, and a great part at that. Seriously, this shit is fun. The game also is a mashup of RPG elements. The game isn't just wake up, go to the green door, bounce and come back. It's everything between those 4 steps. A typical day, or I should say a night, in Techno Banter, will have our protagonist Nil interacting with the world around him. Sometimes he'll be helping a soup chef remember his recipe, and sometimes he'll be out fishing for a quick buck. As I said, there are RPG elements to the game, so there is some choice making involved. Not to mention that there's multiple endings, and for me, for the most part, that's always a plus in my books. At number 6 we have the one and only Mouthwashing. Look, I know I'm late to the party. Mouthwashing took the internet by storm a year or so ago. It's a game I always knew I'd get to, I just never knew when. Well, I got to it. Mouthwashing is a beautiful horror experience. It's what I like to call chill horror. Basically the opposite of Outlast. You're not gonna be getting jump scared left, right, and center, but the quietness of it all will get to you. The atmosphere will be the scare. Mouthwashing has us following what is essentially a space trucker crew. A small group of people assigned with the task of moving mystery items around space. Mystery because it's part of Pony Express's rules. Pony Express, being the name of the moving company our group of protagonists are hired by. The game has us following the slow and sad deterioration of said group. You see on the hall in which the game events take place. The company of Pony Express goes bankrupt, leaving our main characters estranged and stranded in the void that is space. It's honestly a great game, please go play it. At number 5 we have the stealth classic, Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell. This was my first experience with the Splinter Cell series, and it did not disappoint. The badass 2000s OST, taking out lights and just sitting in the darkness. My god, man, it was awesome. Splinter Cell is an older stealth game that has you playing as Sam Fisher, an agent of the fictional Third Echelon. Basically, Black Ops shit. The world cannot know what went on here tonight trope. Sam is an older character. Even though this is the first game in the series, he's clearly a middle-aged man, tired, jaded even. He has a very no-nonsense professional attitude about him, which I think is great. I appreciate the fact that his character clearly has history in the world that we play in, and history with some of the characters alongside him. Everyone loves an origin story, sure, but it's also nice to occasionally hop into a story that's already going on. Makes the world seem more lived in, more realistic if you know what I mean. As an actual stealth game, the game is fantastic. Full transparency, I played the Steam version of the game. The first Splinter Cell is a game that has many ports, and for better or worse, the ports actually matter. If seeing the gameplay in front of you has inspired you to check out the game, I highly recommend getting the Steam version if you're on PC, or even emulating the Xbox version if that's the route you rather go. Avoid the PS2 ports at all costs, because it's genuinely the worst version of the game. I'm talking levels being changed, the game physically looking worse, just a bunch of stinkers. I, myself, am a huge emulation nerd, as some of you may know. However, the reason why I tend to emulate a lot of the games I cover is simply because oftentimes there are no legit ports of the said games. Splinter Cell is the exception. There is an actual port of it on Steam, not to mention the fact that the Steam version comes with a fantastic quick save and load feature, which I think is a must-have to be honest. Generally speaking, Splinter Cell 1 is of the format where there's a big open level, and it has Sam doing whatever task is needed for the mission. Collecting a password, interrogating a dude, whatever have you. Because the levels tend to be more of a larger open type, there are few checkpoints in between. That's why I believe the quick save and load feature is a must. If you get caught or die, you go all the way back to the beginning. And as much as I love a good challenge myself, that shit is not fun in a stealth game, man. So yeah, check out the Steam version if you can. At number 4 we have Yakuza 4. Yakuza 4 was a good time, man. After having played 3, the series was left on a very sour, awkward note for me. In general, the Yakuza games follow a very set blueprint, or at least they had, up until recently, but the point still stands. You play through series protag Kiryu Kazuma, and the story somehow, someway has him fighting with, against, or around with the underground mafia of Japan, better known as the Yakuza. The games are dramatic, crazy masterpieces. In the same game, you can shed tears for a character sacrificing themselves for the sake of the love they have for someone, and you can also help Michael Jackson. That's the level of duality the Yakuza games possess, and I love them for it. This brings us to the 4th game in the series. The 4th game takes a slight departure in the formula, giving us not only Kiryu Kazuma, but in fact 3 new protagonists alongside him, a first for the series at that point in time. If you're unfamiliar with the Yakuza games, the Yakuza series is a beat 'em up essentially. The games have you physically fighting your enemies for one story reason or another. They're very Kurosawa-esque in their over-the-top dramatic nature, but it never feels campy or cringe. It's like when shit gets dramatic in Dragon Ball, you know? You feel the determination running through your veins that you're here to kick ass, and by God you're gonna see it through. The 4th game, albeit, does certainly lack when compared to the narrative of the earlier games, but for me, it was still a great Yakuza experience. I love the newcomers, especially Shun Akiyama. That dude is the first character that I've had a man crush on since Kiryu and Majima. Like, he's the first character in a minute that just immediately ticked off my cool meter. Yakuza 4's premise is about a murder that happens in the open. And in typical Yakuza fashion, that single murder turns out to be linked to a whole level of deep hidden shit. Being the 4th game in this series, I would seriously recommend playing the games in order, seeing as the game is directly tied with the events in the previous games. At number 3 we have Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater, aka the MGS3 remake. Man, what the hell is going on here? Yakuza 4 at 4, MGS3 at 3? Anywho, if you're a viewer of this channel, you'll know I absolutely adored this game. I was super skeptical at first, seeing as this is Konami that we're talking about, but man, this game hit it out of the park. I realize I'm cheating a bit here, seeing as this isn't really a new experience for me. It is a very faithful remake of a game I'm well intimate with, but fuck you, it's my list and I say it's going on here. Delta is, in the simplest words, a super faithful remake that keeps everything amazing about MGS3 and refreshes it for a newer audience. By refresh, I mean new graphics obviously, updated controls, and generally very needed quality of life improvements. I went more in depth in the video I made about MGS Delta, so go check that out after if you're interested. Not much else to say, it's MGS, it's Snake Eater, it's a thrill. At number 2 we have the indie banger Look Outside. Man, I found this game during a pretty tough time in my life a few months back. Don't worry, I'll be sharing the overall qualities of the game, but I also want to take a minute to appreciate this game for getting me through a pretty tough time a few months back. I was going through hell physically and by extension mentally. Chronic health pains can be an ass, and I don't wish them on my worst enemy. But with that being said, I just want to raise a glass to this little gem and its creators, and to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting me through that shit time. Look Outside is a horror RPG that takes place inside an apartment building, with the premise being some intergalactic space creature passing through Earth, and anyone who looks at that thing starts mutating into horrifying eldritch beasts. We're lucky enough to be warned by our neighbor Sybil, who strangely seems to know a lot about what's going on, certainly more than us that is. We're told that this thing will eventually pass, and the game becomes about us surviving this ordeal, and what we choose to do ultimately in the grand scheme of things. There are multiple endings, so your adventure can go many ways. Remember, you're in an apartment building. Do you trust the others? Do you trust your neighbors? Or would you rather be a lone wolf in these confusing times? The choice is entirely yours. This game has a beautiful pixelated RPG Maker look to it, and it's truly a great time. At number 1, can we get a drum roll please? We have the one and only Revacholian Hardcore to the Max banger, Disco Elysium. Bro, where do I even begin with this masterpiece? DE is a text-heavy point-and-click RPG. As you can tell, I was big on the RPGs this year. The game is about an amnesiac detective waking up after a huge drug-heavy binge, barely clinging on to life, slowly remembering why he was sent to what seems like a forgotten town. And by forgotten, I don't mean Martinez is empty or anything, quite the opposite actually. But you come to learn more about this small pocket of the world and how it's largely been forgotten by the greater world. You slowly come to learn the history and the politics of this eerily realistic land. People here believe in politics, some hate politics, and some are too busy finding the Insulindian Phasmid to give a shit about it either way. The game is a beautiful dialogue heavy, and I mean heavy game, but thank God it's combined with amazing voiceovers. Or hey, if you do prefer reading, you can always turn off the voice acting. Regardless, the story and themes that are shared here are truly fascinating and left a mark on me for sure. This game is a long one. I wouldn't advise going into it unless you have the time and or are willing to invest at least 20 hours into it. The detective serves as a fascinating catalyst for your personality / being, but also is a perfect example of being an actual genuine character that has a legit background, a past, before you started meddling with him. But again, he's also a perfect vessel of you and your beliefs. I think this is the only time I've seen a game best fought New Vegas' dialogue options. It's a game that teaches you that it's okay to make mistakes. No, literally, you're gonna fail some skill checks. There's no doubt in that. But you can always try again. You have to try again. It's a game about not giving up when you really think about it. Not being held back by your previous sins and falls. I know the game may not seem much from the evident gameplay, but trust me, I'm holding back here. I've purposely kept the gameplay to the first 3 days so you can experience this gem for yourself. I harp on going into games blind, but with this one, really, go into it head first and don't search up shit. I know the word masterpiece is tacky and everyone throws it around for everything, but truly man, give this game a chance, even if it's not up your usual alley, and you'll thank me for it. Sunset Tequila.